Hello and welcome to episode 191 of Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a weekly podcast where we figure out what we think about everything. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Majic.
Ivanka, waiting for the cue. It's been a few weeks since we've done this. And this week we are talking about, we're going to dive in. We're diving in today with the slightly ambitious topic of something I learnt about this morning, among other things. But the subject is NFTs, Web3, crypto, and just equity in general. And sort of the future of how we track ownership, equity, allow people that contribute to something to get recognised financially for that down the line in a way that is just not happening widely these days. Have any of those things something you've ever thought about before today?
Most of those things that you mentioned I've thought about and then gone, that sounds like a lot of hard work. I'm not sure that I want to read about it today, and I'll put it on my to-do list for tomorrow. So that's one of my first responses to those things. But then it also made me think, and the reason that I've accepted this as a podcast topic is because I think that work of understanding things there's a lot of things to understand at the moment, and in general, and technology moves quite fast, and sometimes it creates this whole new extra divides of people who can understand it, and it often doesn't take the time to explain itself to us. So it's like, you're right, if you can come and play if you can work it out, which it's never going to be equitable. I'm sorry, blockchain folk. No. You got to make yourself equitable in order to support equitable. Well, so yeah. Anyway, That's where I sit on this.
So we're going to try and make some of that a little bit more accessible to the best of our ability. This may we're not going to be like going too long on this one, so we may end up having to break this into another episode if we can't cover enough in half an hour for the rest of 2022. Happy New Year, everyone! It's nice to see you. And let's play the intro and get started, shall we? How's it going, Ivanka? It's been a few weeks. Let's, feel free to talk about multiple things.
Wow. So the thing that I think you'll be happy to hear about is that the digital piano has arrived in the house. Electronic piano. What's it called?
Digital electronic thing. Just not electric piano, because that's a specific thing. Yeah.
So it's got keys that are like a proper piano. Yeah. But it's got a volume control, but no headphone socket. It's a slight mistake. And the child has taken to it with gusto.
Wow.
She absolutely loves it. On Christmas Day, even mid-afternoon on Christmas Day, she was like, so is this my piano? Actually mine? Like, yeah. Wow, a whole piano. So she's being fully grateful and enjoying it, and we've even paid for an application on the that one can put on an iPad, and it helps the child learn to play. And we've all got logins, and we all play, and we're doing really wholesome things, like she does some of the notes and I do some of the notes. Ooh. And it's all very like TV special, Instagram influencer-tastic.
It awakened something in you, would you say?
Well, do you know what? It was a huge relief to me to discover that I could still read music. Because having played the accordion for 7,000 years as a child, the piano accordion, the right hand I've got down pat.
Right.
And then because I know what those notes are, I was like, phew. And I'm just a step enough ahead of her to be able to be useful. And then the left hand, though, I realised it almost was stomach knotty weird trying to do something that I've never done with my left hand. Like a bit like, I don't quite have the coordinates. So it's like the first couple, but I am enjoying it. It's really nice, actually. I have to say that I'm more than happy with how it's turned out.
Excellent.
Because it's lovely. There you go. And she just loves it, and she sits there and she like acts out. She makes up songs.
Yeah.
That she does try and make them sound musical. And once we'd given her a few notes to mess around with, there is more. She's trying to use. It's nice. It's just nice to see. Give her something to play with that's creative and nice, and that's it. Really, that's my best story. I hope you all enjoy it. What about you, Michael?
Well, I've been to Radcliffe-on-Trent, so people looking at the video can see some lovely, beautiful tree footage in Radcliffe-on-Trent, and the third one today will be my dad. We found some mushrooms, some shaggy parasols, and I ate some mushrooms that my dad picked. Everyone else was too scared. I was like, I think I trust you to know which mushroom is which. I'm going to do it.
You're the only person.
I was the only other person that went, and it was lovely. And I was like, all right, everybody. Everyone else was like, I don't want to. But they smelled nice. They looked good. I was like, I'm going to go with my dad on this.
Wow.
That was good. The other thing is...
He loves you more than the others now.
He does now. But that's mainly because I can help him fix his PHP website when he can't connect to the database anymore. The other thing is I finally broke my phone. I dropped it 7 feet into the shower. So it's my sad story, but it's a good story because only the back cracked and the front is perfectly fine. So I have a marginally less waterproof phone. I have to say, iPhone XR, must have dropped this 50 times so far. So the fact that it's made it this long, but I was listening to my learning Italian in the shower in Italy, and I had to sort of balance it up on the top, and it just... it fell the full height because for some reason it was a little bit wetter than usual for some reason. I'm not saying that's someone else's fault. I'm just saying I noticed, and then I had a broken phone. But yeah, it's there we go. That's my main 2 boring stories. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
So, there was some footage of lovely the River Trent. So, I first looked up what people meant by Web3 last week. And it was like, okay, it's like the internet, but there's this crypto foundation to it all. And the first way that I thought of that, and I've been mulling it over a little bit, and I've listened to a couple of things and looked into what like APIs and SDKs are available for web. What's the JavaScript Web3 library? And it's basically a thing to let users log in via whatever crypto account, but whatever. But it seems like I think the excitement around this Web3 idea is around ownership and equity of the stuff we're putting out on the internet, which currently is this walled garden. Zuckerberg gets to keep like all the money, even though we did all the work to create that content. So it's this highly, highly, highly distributed version of equity that without a blockchain, it just would not be practical to achieve. And when I'm just going to talk, but like when I think about the clearest example I have as a musician to that is royalties collecting agencies like PRS, Performing Rights Society. What they end up, and labels, in fact, in general, they will end up. A lot of these pop songs now have like 30 writers credited to the song, so there'll be a lot of and then like if you're in a band, you have to say like, oh, I did 20%, the singer did 40%, the drummer did 20%, blah blah blah, and you've got to put that into your royalty thing, and then this royalty collection agency is responsible for collecting that and making sure that somewhere down the supply chain that the person that buys that CD, that money ends up coming back through, and then you end up getting your correct split by the end of it. But what happens in reality is record labels sort of do the work of that, because it's a lot of admin. They do the work of that for their top performing artists, and then they sort of hang on to this huge float, basically, of money that they just don't have the time or resources to distribute to the original people that are entitled to it. And the switch with the blockchain is that suddenly it would unlock that sort of micro equity sort of world, and now there would be a mechanism, like a transparent mechanism for tracking like ownership. So say I make a Instagram video that doesn't go viral on my Instagram, but then someone modifies it a little bit and it goes viral on theirs. My ownership of that is still sort of baked into that, and I get something for that step. What do you think? Is this a problem that needs to be solved?
Well, that's a good question, because I was actually when we had our little, because we do have a little pre-podcast chat. You may not believe this, but we do. But anyway, we had one thing I hadn't thought about earlier is this sort of, so I can understand in the music example that you provide. It's very there's a very clear a practical sort of everybody who did something, everybody who participated gets something, and it so you don't just get this music elite, you also get lots of it's like lots of money gets distributed further down the chain. Sounds great, and frankly I think from what I was talking about earlier, from a consumer point of view, getting consumers to understand that putting the onus onto consumers to distribute their money fairly is too much work. That I use that example of I use Signal to send messages, and this New Year's they asked for some money, and I was like, sure, you can have some money. I don't mind paying you for a product that I use, but again, that's that's not a straightforward. You got to know a bit about making stuff and the internet to start thinking about that. So when you were talking about the music example, I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And then I was thinking, well, okay, does everything need to be turned into equity? Do I need to own something? Do I need to get something for everything that I do? I don't necessarily agree or disagree, because I was thinking about how does open source fit into this? Where, but I suppose even in those settings, you may not want equity or money or whatever, but just credit is nice sometimes.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be financial.
So there's that sort of when you're creating things, but then there's also, and the example that I think is maybe more accessible to all of us, is this thing where at the moment we are giving loads of stuff away for free all the time without realizing it, and not getting anything for it apart from being duped to voting for nefarious people. That's about all we've got out of it so far, is in exchange for sharing some pictures with family and friends far away, we have let Cambridge Analytica screw us all over. So I'm not sure that's a very good deal.
Yeah. I think, and I think maybe it's so. What I think the way I heard it described earlier was that there is this missing middle class in this sort of creator economy. Just in the same way that the middle class is getting diluted, we're really the middle class in terms of just the real world is so close to the living month to month, paycheck to paycheck world compared to the 1% type people that's basically upper class and lower class in real terms. But the frustration I permanently have is the lack of possibilities to sort of be an artist and not have to be selling #1 records in order to be able to pay my rent or buy a new keyboard or all those things, because it costs a lot of money. So in music it's this really, it's almost like, I heard you talking about playing the piano over Christmas with your, and getting excited about it, and your daughter getting excited about it, and going, what if all of this stuff I've made, I heard about this platform, I think it's music.xyz or songs.xyz or something, but I want to go on there because just with the thought of if I could mint an NFT for one of my songs and sell it for 300 quid, it would be so transformative for my relationship in terms of my relationship to creativity, because the moment it feels like this, if I do not get a viral hit, I get nothing for all the hours and hours and days and weeks of effort that I put into something. And in the same way, like money, the equipment that I bought, like the thousands and thousands of pounds of music gear that I will never recoup in the current economy. It's absolutely like, it's such a draw to me, to the idea that maybe I could actually recoup some of that finally. And really there's this barrier, like I'm in a good place because I don't mind figuring out something complicated and technical, and maybe I'm in a position to create a platform that did that for other people. But we're definitely creating a lot, but we lack the mechanism to be rewarded for that creativity. And meanwhile, big companies are, you can say like, do I need to get paid for my Facebook post? But the truth is, Zuck's getting paid for it. Why should he get paid for it?
And I think one of the problems that and maybe this isn't, you can tell me if I'm going off on a tangent, but think about, there's quite a few posts going around at the moment, like Lush Cosmetics, Patagonia have all stated that they will not spend any of their advertising money on the Facebook platform, right? Because of how it gets used and the data, blah, blah. And as owning a little website like Restaurants Brighton, we try really hard to not participate in the data gathering economy. We don't have Facebook Pixel on our website, which is the thing that allows Facebook to chase you around. We do have the Google stuff because we use Google Analytics, but like compared to many other websites by many other assessments, our website's actually quite nice to you. It's the only there are sites that allow you to compare, but we cannot afford to not spend money on Facebook and Instagram advertising because we need that traffic for that for to keep our business relevant. And so but if more people understood what they're giving away on Facebook and Instagram, then I would be able to opt out. Do you know what I mean? Do you see what I mean? Like if there was a clearer understanding from people of what they, well, not necessarily but yeah, I would like it if more people understood what they were giving away with all their likes and shares.
Yeah,
it
definitely.
Would be good for me.
Yeah, let's do a break. So I think the fact that we have to go to Google, the fact that we have to go to Facebook, is a sort of symptom of an underlying sort of lack of democracy in how equity works in the world. Everything's built to have it sucked up by these small companies, and investors, like by a small number of investors, I guess, at the end of the day, will go, okay, I'm going to take bets on these companies. And there are only a few people in America. I don't know how it works in the UK or other countries, but in America, like you have to be a certified, advanced, whatever investor to even be able to buy like certain kinds of stock and equity and things in different companies. Which is something that I've been thinking a lot more about. I think I've got a better understanding of recently, but by just doing a bit of actual like crypto speculation with real money and going, okay, look, if it gets to this price, I've set it up so like if when it hits a certain price, it's going to sell a certain amount of Bitcoin, and I'm going to be able to buy a new keyboard for my thing that's broken over there in the corner. So I sort of figured out how to do that, and now I'm like really watching this sort of like rising and falling sea of Bitcoin. It sort of nearly got there, and now it's just like crashed and then crashed again and then crashed again. So I'm like, okay, I'm sort of down 200 quid at this point. But whatever, like this is investment, and like investors are looking for that thing that's kind of like going up and down by whatever level of variability, and you sort of start, you go from stable stuff to more complex stuff based on, you put different amounts into different things. And Bitcoin and blockchain stuff is not, you can just try it and try out a really volatile market, and don't do it unless you are prepared to lose all of the money that you put in, because you are basically gambling, but not in the way that if you buy a lottery ticket where a pound is just gone. It's where it might fall and fall and fall, and then you maybe take the loss.
You might still walk away with 5p.
Yeah, you might still walk away with 5p, but at least it's not quite as hard edged as I'm going to bet on a horse and lose the money. But anyway, I'm seeing that mechanism by which companies are traded, and that whole IPO thing. So one thing is you buy equity in a company early on, and then in the hope that it will grow into a unicorn, as they call them, and then when they exit, you get your money. But if they never exit, you never get your money. You just it's all in stock, and it's all in your stake in this company, and sort of you can know that you have £500,000 in equity in something, but you can't actually get access to that unless they either sell or they go public, in which case the shares of it can be traded, and then I can buy a bit of it. Anyone can buy a bit of it, but there's this whole in-betweens of companies that they're not big enough to go public, and then there's that whole overhead to being on the stock exchange, and they might just the founders might just love it, and they're never going to sell it. And so if you invest in it, you're sort of you're bringing that investments in it are bringing in this thing where they want you to sell it, because otherwise they're never getting their money back. So the whole idea of a democratized distributed type of equity that could be done on the blockchain opens up all of that sort of speculation onto these little smaller companies in a way that just really wasn't practically possible before. And it sort of takes us back to that thing of perhaps not just artists but also businesses can sort of raise funds or get people contributing, both in terms of their time and getting tokens for that, or buying the tokens is a sort of speculative thing. And it sort of would create a much more dynamic sort of ecosystem for all that kind of thing.
But wouldn't it be, going back to your creator thing as well, wouldn't it be nice instead of it being about shares in the company, it be in your music analogy, if I participated in the design of some software and I owned, X token, and forever while that's being used, each worker in the factory, actually gets a little bit of the. That'd be sort of it brings a whole new meaning. Sorry, I'm obviously processing as you're telling me the story. But it's that is a proper cooperative, then, isn't it? It's we actually own all shares in this thing that we've made. I read this. I'll find it and then maybe put it in the notes. But there was a thing describing a poem from something 1937, the car workers poem or something, and it was it's kind of this whole. It illustrates the ridiculousness of how people are paid versus the cost of how much money they generate for an organization. So I think this would be it does sound like there is some potential for some really good distribution of recognition, or let's maybe even wealth, dare we say it, with
can
this
you imagine
technology. But if only the super educated can ever be asked to work out how it works, it will just create a different elite. That's my fear of these things.
And I think that's a very good concern, because what did the current internet create? It created Zuckerberg and Bezos and people like that. It still kind of funneled it in, but I think and really the internet was this highly democratized, highly peer-to-peer system where in theory everyone starts from the same ground and anyone can make a website that people come to, but somehow we humans have turned it into monopolies. Because there's just something about that level of cooperation, and just someone gets it right, and then there's that sort of feedback loop that means they can hire better people and grow it into something that's really good. And then you look at the competitors to Google Analytics and you go, but
Yeah.
I can't.
And plus, it's like Google advertising. It's like I actively, I have Ecosia, DuckDuckGo, all of these things as my default search engines to try and even distribute my own behaviour. And then every so often I have to go into DuckDuckGo and go google.com. They go, right, let me Google the actual answer that I want, because this is. And then I've looked at like distributing our advertising spend and going over to Bing, which Bing is the engine that feeds all the others. And it's like, it's just, I'm not rich enough to be that morally sound.
Yeah, having some morals costs you time, which costs you money, which it's just this and it's all the same feedback loop. But if but at least I guess if this Web3 idea had been there at the inception of Facebook or Amazon, then instead of just like, Jeff Bezos had that letter and he was like, I just spoke to some people who are very happy with how much money I made them as investors. If it wasn't just that sort of handful of people that were that happy about Amazon, but it was everybody that's ever worked at Amazon getting a proper cut of that growth, then wouldn't it be, that's sort of the dream, I think. What are the barriers to making that a reality? Probably, like tech adoption, how much that gets, because it's not just well, I mean, and I talk about this with sort of limited experience in doing it, but there's this idea of tokens on the blockchain, so you can mint these tokens and distribute them, and then that represents your equity. But there's also this idea of smart contracts, where you create a rule on the blockchain, and then that contract can never be changed. And then people have to like vote on stuff in terms of those contracts. And it's such an abstract idea that I can't explain it any clearer than that, because I haven't tried it and I don't have a sort of deeper understanding than that. But the idea that like decisions are made on the blockchain based on how much equity different people have, and then and that is like enforced by these contracts. I think like what will those contracts be, and what clever Bezos will come up with one that lets them keep all the money? I don't know.
It's I think it's a like many of these tools, they will amplify bad stuff as well as good stuff. But the more people understand that there's potential for it to amplify the good stuff, and the more people that have access to the good stuff, the more chance there is of some of that good stuff, like not creating a new kind of monster, a new kind of Bezos. I like the idea of Bezos as a monster, the Bezos monster. I think that's good. He is a monster.
It's capitalism is the real monster. Bezos just won at capitalism by doing all the things we're trying to do, but just doing it really well, and then getting that early mover advantage and monopolize it. I mean, he did do some slimy stuff, let's face it. Like, he used his seed funding to be able to price other people out and then just kill the competition. So I don't know. It's pretty gross. Where are we up to? We are up to 28. Let me put a break in, and then I just want to clarify, because I know not everyone even understands what an NFT is, but let's talk about that a little bit, just so that I can say it a bit more casually in future. What have you got here?
Shaggy parasols.
What are they for?
What?
What are they for?
Eating. They're very tasty.
And what is your qualification?
I'm a nerd.
That was Michael Forrest's father gathering mushrooms. You can see that video if you come onto our Patreon.
Got a magnificent beard.
He's going for the Dawkins thing. Right. What is? Let's just talk about something. Well, here's one way in which it's sort of already feels a bit like it's reinforcing the status quo, this whole thing. And so NFTs are a way it's basically you can buy the certificate that says that you own the first tweet for whatever hundreds of £1,000s, £1 million, you can go, I want to say I own the first tweet. So just in the same way, if you buy a piece of art in the real world, you have to get this certificate that proves its authenticity, because sort of in a way, like, yeah, if you could just buy like a reproduction of that piece of art and it would look the same, but it wouldn't give you that story that you tell your rich friends. No, this is the original. And here's a certificate to prove it. So it's sort of like a way of... so really the mechanism there that's really giving you the story is that proof of ownership. That little certificate that says, that's mine, and I paid a lot of money for it. And then it shredded itself. But hey, we're fine with that. No. So what an NFT is, it's a non-fungible token. So I guess when we talk about tokens, some of them are fungible, but these ones are not fungible. But what it means is, yeah, the token is an NFT is basically, I bought this thing, this digital thing, this song. Like I own the original of Let It Be by the Beatles, and I just paid £10 million. It's a way that rich people can buy digital things and own them in a real sense. In as much as you can own anything in a real sense, it's a certificate that proves that you own it. And then those things can be traded. And then the sort of promise of this is creators can make, like, and there's this story of the NFT creator, I forget his name, I should know, but like the big story was this guy sold NFT, and we've mentioned it before. Beeple sold an NFT for $69 million, which was this guy that does CGI images on Instagram and had like a year's worth of these images, and he sold that as a digital asset for £69 million. And so everyone's like, what? But the way in which it sort of like alludes to what you were talking about is it's still just a way for famous people to sell their art. Because if no one's heard of you, your NFT doesn't really have much value.
No.
But you can still make one. And then maybe lower people that aren't like super wealthy, normal people can maybe speculate on your sort of affordable NFTs. And that I have heard of artists having a little bit of success in that. A musician that sold like bits and pieces of things that they were making and actually probably made more money from that from ever they would streaming on Spotify.
Is this an equivalent of like going to the graduate art fair and buying a painting because you like it, and a little bit of you maybe speculating that this artist will make it? So if I come and buy a non-fungible token from you, Michael Forrest, and then I, then in 3 days, whatever it is goes viral, and suddenly I bought the Mona Lisa.
Exactly. It's exactly that. It's exactly that. And these things can be traded just like any other thing on the blockchain.
And the necessity for these is born out of basically the reproducibility of digital artifacts. So
obviously.
I suppose you could get a copy of a painting, but it's never going to have the same brushstroke. You will ultimately be able to prove it wasn't the original, or that it's another version, technically, I suppose. But if I copy a song, I've copied it, or
like digital reproduction. Like,
it's like infinite.
Yeah, it's to create scarcity in something which is inherently infinitely reproducible, and that scarcity is something that we as humans happen to value a lot, especially if it's something loads of people are talking about. We think that's cool. So that's all really an NFT is, audience.
Okay.
But it does. I think again, what this unlocks is a more democratic type of investing, a more democratic market than I have to go to, some auction, Sotheby's auction, and buy my art there.
Or
it's
even go
to a website,
graduate art fair.
Yeah,
you could
all
do
of
these things have a. There's some work to do.
That's true. I like the
That's
graduate
it.
art fair. I'd never thought of because I have been to some architecture ones, but they didn't have anything on sale. So
No, I
who
went.
knows?
I was like, because this house. This is a very tangent. This house doesn't have enough pictures in it, and so compared to Brighton, my Brighton house, yeah. So I contacted the art college in Split, but I was like the day after the graduate art fair. I was like, oh, damn it.
Well, I get to go to them
fair.
based on Sharon's connections because she, she works in the universities, so she knows when these things are happening. I haven't been to many.
But yeah, it's a nice thing to do, I think.
But yeah, there's some websites. There's some websites where you can look into this stuff. I'm going to try and collect together a few links. Maybe we haven't explicitly mentioned them in the podcast, but I will bring together links to more information on the stuff that we've talked about today.
I have to say,
listeners, go on.
Just googled buy NFT, just so you know, live on the internet, and the images that have come up on this, I'll share the link with you, are just like things I don't think I want the NFT to any of these.
There's a lot of
nice.
ugly.
I'm glad you can do that. It's like the equivalent of a car boot sale or something. It's like jumble sale.
Well, that's why I think
anyway.
Maybe if I can go onto this music NFT platform that wants to make 1 million musicians get paid. That's the music.xyz or whatever, but I'll put it in the link. Okay. Yeah, like a lot of these are bad, but I think like I've got a couple of good ones, and maybe if I couldn't get those to be popular, like without the NFT, why do I think that I could get it with the NFT? But we'll see. It's something I'm intrigued by anyway, and I just hope it will give me a bit of that. But also, I think in terms of like what I do next, it may be like a streaming. I'm thinking of starting to think seriously about like a streaming platform that is a bit less gamery and has got the stuff built into it a bit more, the overlays and stuff built into it a bit more. But I think in terms of I think there's a whole equity thing that we could look at there and say like the number of hours you've streamed literally gets you a stake in this platform.
They take the piss so hard.
Yes,
people. It's like, you too can make money out of and it's like, how many hours and hours and hours and hours of content I need to create, and they need us all to create their content because they work on such huge volumes that they don't give a stuff if it's good or bad content as long as somebody's had a look at it. And they are using up the Earth's valuable resources for their bullshit supporting.
I swear,
chat, Michael.
It's good, but we need to hurry it along if we're going to record our second podcast recording of the day. Because today is the first day. We started an hour early to try and get ahead of the new one. Can you see my screen? Podcast.com. What we haven't covered, and probably if anyone's listened to this that does know about it, is getting angry about that. There are environmental concerns over blockchain, all of this stuff. Just know that I am fairly. I feel like these blockchains. It's like proof of work. The ones that you have to burn through the Earth's resources in order to mint cryptocurrencies. I think they've got to be outlawed by governments, and everyone's got to move over to proof of stake ones, which do not have that energy thing baked into them, and so. Ethereum, which is what the NFTs are done on generally, got a lot of bad press. Weirdly, the bad press went to the artists rather than the huge financial speculators that are selling every day, just because it does take energy to mint an NFT. But that they are trying to move over to a proof of stake blockchain, which I am just sort of banking on me not looking like a horrible person 2 years down the line when this I talked about blockchain and it was like talking about joining the Nazi party or something. It probably seems like in 2 years. So
what was it, proof of stake and proof of what?
Proof of work, proof of stake. So when we did that R-Chain episode, the blockchain one, R-Chain is proof of stake. So what I did when I bought some cryptos was I bought some Bitcoin because that's the one really that's doing anything, but I also bought some small amounts of the proof of stake ones, so that if the other ones fell over, maybe those ones would grow as the world sort of stops being quite so rampant about the energy costs of all this stuff. I do just want to quickly say hi Paul, I do see you there. It's just we're recording the podcast, so it's quite hard to sort of do Twitch chat, and usually no one turns up. So, but yes, nice to see you, DJ Decane. Go and listen. I should do a shout out to DJ Decane. I interviewed him for Squares TV, and he's doing some great stuff. Anyway, yes, let's call that. Sorry, let's call that the episode. Have you got any closing thoughts at all, or should we jump in?
No, I think I've had thoughts, and they were interesting.
Maybe we can pick up.
I'm
this
now going to go
conversation
away and think about this. I think we need to do another episode on this next week.
Yeah, probably. Think of some ideas. It's interesting anyway.
I need to.
Thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, go to grandpodcast.com. We have a Patreon. If you go on the Patreon, you'll get... Here's the thing. You'll get, like, the video. You can see the video of this, the recording. You get it 2 days early. I think it's 2 days now because I moved it up on Mondays. But you also get an email every week with all the links and stuff. So with a link to the YouTube video and then all the links of things we've talked about, and then that's in your inbox and you don't have to hunt it down on the internet. It's just there, you keep it forever. So I think that's something I quite like about it, actually. And in the new podcast, I think I'm going to try and make that more of a selling point. But yeah, we've got that Patreon. Annette sent us some money again, $50 Canadian.
Thank you, Auntie Annette.
Sent in a card from Canada. Thank you so much, Annette. I do really appreciate that. Where can people find you on the internet, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
And you can find me at Michael Forrest on Twitter. And my main thing is squares.tv. We do have ivanka.blog under your face there, but when the book's out, maybe.
Maybe.
Ivanka's got a book coming out, so stay tuned.
You can't pre-order it yet. You can't do anything yet.
When you can pre-order it, you can pre-order it. But anyway, that's it. So we'll see you next week. We're back on this now. Take care. Bye-bye.
Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you all. Yes. Bye. You say bye too. Bye.
Bye.